As you get more comfortable working with layers, there are a few shortcuts that are going to help you to be much more efficient. I'm going to go to Bridge, and I want to select all 4 of these small square images. So I'll select the first one, hold down the Shift key, and then select the last one. With all of them selected, instead of opening them each into their own document, I'm going to use the Tools menu in Bridge, select Photoshop, and then load files into Photoshop layers. Photoshop will open each one of these images and drop it into a single document. Now, it didn't load them into the harvest image that I had selected, but at least they're all in one document, so I can drag and drop them together. In order to do this, I could use my keyboard shortcut that I set up earlier or use Window, Arrange, and then Tile. I'll click on the harvest image for a moment to see which layer is targeted. It's the greens frame that's targeted right now. So if I drag and drop all of these other images into this document, they're going to appear right above this. I actually want them to appear above the grape. So I'll target that layer, then click on the untitled one. In the layers panel, the peppers layer is selected. I'll hold down the Shift key and select the tomato layer, selecting all of the layers at once, and then drag and drop them into the harvest image, holding down the Shift key in order to drop them right in the center. I no longer need Untitled 1, so I'll close that without saving. I want to change the stacking order of these 4 layers. I want to put the strawberries layer at the bottom, so I'll click on it to target it, and then drag it down. Then I want the pumpkins on top of that, and then the peppers, and then the tomato. You'll notice that when you start from Bridge and you use that feature to load those files into a layered Photoshop document, it automatically names them for me, which is very convenient. Now let's talk a little bit about quickly selecting layers. So we've used the Layers panel in order to quickly select layers. We can hold down the Command key on Mac or the Control key on Windows to select more than one layer. Or we can select a layer and hold down the Shift key in order to select a number of layers at once. But we can also use the Move tool to select layers in the image area. I'll select the Move tool, and by default, Auto Select Layer is toggled on. So if I click in the greens area, it will automatically select that layer on the Layers panel. If I click in the tomatoes, it will automatically select that layer. Now you might not want Auto Select on at all times, so you can toggle it off in the options bar, and then to temporarily invoke it, hold down the Command key on Mac or the Control key on Windows and click on a layer in order to select it. Although if you have a number of layers that are stacked on top of one another, holding down the Command key will only ever select that top layer. Then it might be best to use the context-sensitive menus. So on Mac, you can Control-click or right-click and then select the layer that you want to target from the context-sensitive menus. All right, before I start moving these layers, let's create a new guide layout under View and then New Guide Layout. All I want to do is add a margin on the left and the right-hand side. So I'll enable margin. And then on the left side, I'm going to enter in 300, but I don't want 300%, which is what my units of measurement are set to. So I'm going to type in px for pixels. Then we can just swipe that, use Command C to copy it, and then on the right-hand side, paste that using Command V. I'll go ahead and delete the values from the top and bottom, and I'm going to tell Photoshop to preview this, as well as clear the existing guide, that one that was at 50%, and click OK. Then I'll turn back on Auto Select, and let's start distributing these layers. I'm just going to move the tomatoes down a little bit, then I'll click on the peppers and move them. I'll click on the pumpkins and move them down just to see what we have. I think it'll look best if I put the strawberries on the left-hand side, maybe the tomatoes on the right, and maybe the pumpkins and the peppers, something like that. Now you can see every time I move something around, we get those magenta lines as well as sometimes some magenta values there. These are smart guides, and they're helping me to position the images in the document area. So I can use smart guides, for example, very easily to make sure that the tops of all of these images are aligned. But if you don't want to use smart guides, or if you have just too many images to do this, you could select all of those layers in your Layers panel. And with the Move tool selected, we have options not only for alignment, but also to distribute layers. In this case, I just want them all top aligned, so I'll select that option. Now, I've positioned the strawberries against the guide to the left and the tomatoes against the guide to the right. So to get even spacing between all of these, I'll use the More icon here and then tell Photoshop to distribute the spacing based on the contents of the image. Right now, if I select this option or this option, we'll get the same results because it's distributing objects that are the same size. But if you had different size objects, this distribute based on the spacing is really nice because it'll make sure that there's even spacing between objects, even if those objects are a different size. All right. I'll tap Return in order to dismiss that dropdown, and then I'll choose View and then Show. And let's go ahead and hide our guides. Then I'll do a File, Save As. I'll save it to my computer. I'm going to append it with an _01, saving it to the same folder as a multi-layered Photoshop document, and click Save.